With the massive growth in Bitcoin, a number of very familiar myths have popped up about Bitcoin, many of them untrue. So in an effort to help clear the air and to educate the investing public on Bitcoin, let's walk through them. Myth number 1, Bitcoin is only used for speculation. Bitcoin today is held by millions of people all around the world, including by many in developing countries who have no other option, no way to get access to financial services. It's also held by many large corporations on their balance sheet as a treasury investment, and it's held by countless investors as a long-term store of value, something that acts as a diversifier in a portfolio. I would say that's pretty useful and not speculation. Myth number 2, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy and it's killing the planet. This is a myth that requires a little bit of a deeper dive. It's true that the Bitcoin network, through the proof-of-work mining system, does use a lot of electricity. However, because of the nature of Bitcoin mining, a lot of miners co-locate near renewable sources of power. And so what that means is that Bitcoin as an industry is probably one of the greenest in the world. According to the University of Cambridge, over 40% of the energy that goes into Bitcoin is 100% renewable. And according to another estimate, upwards of 70% of Bitcoin miners use some mix of renewable energy. Myth number 3, other cryptocurrencies are going to displace Bitcoin somehow. That's not true, and it's obvious just by looking at the entire history of crypto assets. Ethereum, the second largest crypto asset in the world, was launched in 2015, and it has grown tremendously in size since then. In that same period of time, Bitcoin increased many fold, and today is more widely held and more widely used than ever before. So this is a growing pie. Many different kinds of assets, which represent different use cases, can succeed. Myth number 4, governments will try and ban Bitcoin or try and kill Bitcoin. That might be true in certain parts of the world. If you look at China, where Bitcoin is seen as a threat to the one-party state, or if you look at places like Nigeria, where Bitcoin is beginning to replace a large part of the banking system for many people, then of course it's viewed as a threat. Here in North America, Europe, and elsewhere, Bitcoin is seen as something that I think is frankly systemically important. It's very large in size, and I think many regulators actually have an enlightened and open-minded view towards it. So Bitcoin will and should be regulated, obviously, but in my view, Bitcoin is not going to get crushed anytime soon by any government. Myth number 5, central banks will create some sort of alternative to Bitcoin, a central bank digital currency that will therefore render Bitcoin useless. Again, not something that should be of concern. If you look at CBDCs, as they're called, and many of them are basically just concepts, they are very similar to something that already exists today, called a stablecoin. A stablecoin is a digital asset that tracks the value of a dollar, usually the US dollar, 1-to-1. Over the past few years, the value of stablecoins has increased to over $100 billion. And it has had no impact. If anything, it has had only a positive impact on the value of Bitcoin and other crypto assets, because it's also an easier way to buy and trade those assets as well. Myth number 6, Bitcoin is just too volatile to be a store of value. Nobody is suggesting that you put 100% of your portfolio into Bitcoin, just as nobody would suggest you do that with any other asset. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say. But there are many examples throughout history where an asset was both volatile and a good investment. If you look at gold, for example, during the 1970s, after the gold window was finally closed for good in 1971, gold went through this period of price discovery where the price was volatile, but overall, the trend was up. And that's because the market was trying to determine just what this asset was worth in a new kind of monetary system. I think of Bitcoin as being in a similar place. We're still in the price discovery phase, and as Bitcoin matures, probably the volatility will decline as it did for gold. But again, volatility and investment worthiness are not the same thing. Adding a small amount of Bitcoin to a well-diversified portfolio can not only improve your overall returns, but it actually improves your measures of risk-adjusted returns. In other words, adding a small amount of Bitcoin to a portfolio can, in most instances, actually lower overall portfolio risk, which is why, in our view, it is a good store of value. Myth number 7, Bitcoin is benefiting from easy central bank policy like many other new and emerging assets. This one's a hard one to untangle, but it is worth noting that though central bank policy has been accommodative for a while, it's possible that it could begin to tighten in the face of inflation. And if you think about one of the benefits of Bitcoin, the fact that it is an asset that can be stored, that is not issued by a government, and could perhaps act as a useful hedge against currency devaluation, it's likely that you could see Bitcoin succeed in various different kinds of environments. In an environment where the central bank is tightening policy and raising interest rates in the face of high inflation, Bitcoin could be seen as a store of value.